Let's see, we are back. It looks like we are live again for day 3. So, welcome back. We're doing a 6-part live series on early intervention, talking all things early intervention from should I call all the way to the transition meeting when your child ages out before their 3rd birthday. So, lots to cover in this series. Some of you are watching this live. Some of you are actually getting it on the pre-recording, which is totally fine. If you have any questions while you're live, just put those questions in the chat. If you are watching the recording, just put it in the comment section below and I will get to your questions. So let's go ahead and get started. We actually have quite a bit to go through today. So this is our full series, what every parent needs to know about early intervention. Like I said, day 3 today, talking all about intake. During the first video, I kind of gave a more detailed explanation of why families trust me and why I feel educated to teach you this. So I'll go ahead and let you can screenshot it, you can read over it, but to make it very simple, I've been in early intervention for over 10 years, working as both a pediatric developmental therapist and a service coordinator. So I have got to see both sides of the early intervention program, which makes it very beneficial for me to be able to teach this information to you guys. Had I not been a service coordinator for those 5 years, I would not have known what paperwork goes with what and the best practices and all of that stuff. So it's been a true blessing that I have been able to see both sides. And then this is the order of our live series. Today is intake. Tomorrow we're going to go ahead and talk about evaluations. If you missed day 1 and 2, that's totally fine. I have it linked in the description below. Or if you go to Milestone Mom YouTube channel and click on the live button, you'll see all the lives that I do. Okay, so like I said previously, what has happened so far? So we already talked about should you call early intervention? If you decided to, you've already made that referral to the early intervention program in your state. Once that referral was put in, you then were contacted by a service coordinator in your area to schedule that intake meeting. So today is intake day. So this is going to either be completed in person or by phone. I will say that, remember, I'm speaking from Illinois. All of our meetings, even if they were 5-minute ad service meetings, were done in person before COVID. During, obviously, they were all online. And then after, it took a while, but people they have gotten back into in person. Some people still do online. So it depends on your area and if they're going to come into your home and do that intake or do it by phone. And then, as always, I will have this link below. You can go ahead and screenshot this if you want, but it is in the description. This is an early intervention program by state. If you do feel like you need to give them a call, just remember that early intervention is birth to 36 months and your little one ages out before their 3rd birthday. So as I said in the last video that I did, if your little one is close to 36 months, I would still call, especially if you have concerns. The evaluations are usually quick. What families are waiting for is ongoing services typically. Especially at the time of the recording of this video, there's a lot of wait lists going on, but typically they can get the evaluation scheduled pretty quickly because we do have a timeline that we need to adhere to. So if they're almost 36 months and you have concerns, still call and get that evaluation completed, because part of our process for early intervention is to transition to the early childhood program in your home-based school. So, even if we can get the evaluation set up, but no ongoing setup, we can still work on that transition process. Okay, so what exactly is the intake meeting? So this is your first initial conversation with your service coordinator. Now, when you had called to make the referral, you probably talked to a front office person, a staff person who takes those type of calls. It was handed over to your service coordinator, and this is your first initial conversation with them. They obviously have called you on the phone to set up the meeting. Usually these are done in home. Early intervention is a home-based program. We feel like kiddos do better in their natural environment, which home is a natural environment. I know, some families, can meet at the library or something like that, but typically it's done in your home. A lot of family history questions. Your significant other, any type of family, and also your kiddo's history as well. Pregnancy information, if it is a foster kiddo, we will get as much information as we can. I know that DCFS only gives you so much information. So we will just have reports on whatever you give us. If it did come from DCFS, sometimes we have a little bit more information that we can document. Any developmental concerns that you have, that's why you called. When we do the intake meeting, we do know why you called because they talked about that with you during the referral process. So we do have an idea of why we're coming in. And then we just reiterate that on that a little bit more with you. So this is the beginning of a lot of information obtained. So we know what evaluations to get set up and what direction to go. This is also the beginning of a lot of paperwork for the service coordinators as well. And again, this is what I was talking about. If I was not a service coordinator for 5 years, I would have no idea what this process looks like. So I'm very, very grateful that I've had the opportunity to do that. This is also where we will typically get a copy of your insurance card so the office can process it to see what is covered. We will also get financials at the IFSP meeting if your child does qualify. So the IFSP meeting happens after the evaluations are completed. So we usually just tell you to have those ready just in case they do qualify. But at the time of intake, we will typically get your insurance card. If your family has state aid, or we call it public aid here, it's also known as all kids. We are able to look your child up in our system since we work for the state and have a shared system with DHS, Department of Human Services. So we would be able to look that up. And then here's a big question I get. So I'm going to break this down. Do I have to pay money for early intervention? And the answer is yes and no, because it depends. So in our area where I'm at, I'm in Illinois, all evaluations, and I do think this is broad, I think it's across all states. If you are a therapist listening to this, or if you are a mom who's went through this in a different state, feel free to comment and let me know how it works in your state. I actually would love to know that information. So in our area, like I said, all evaluations are free to families to determine eligibility, and free evaluations are awesome. So if you're on the fence about calling, just remember the evaluations are free. If we come in and we don't qualify your child, then we move on our way. If we do qualify your child, then you have peace of mind knowing that they're getting the help that they need. So if your child qualifies and your family has public aid that is free to you, meaning that they don't have a copay meaning that you don't have a copay or you don't have that spin down amount each month, then the ongoing services will be free. However, if your child qualifies and your family has public aid and you have a copay or spin down amount, then you might have to pay a monthly fee. And I will get into that here in a minute. If you have private insurance, you also might have to pay a monthly fee. It all depends, which we will get into. I'm not going to leave you hanging there. So how much is the family fee? And I want to let you know that it goes by your family size and gross income. Again, I put down here, if you are a therapist or EI employee, or even a parent that has went through this from a different state, please comment below. I would love to know if this is applicable in your state. Okay, so pre-COVID, this is the form that we went by. When COVID happened, they took away the family fee for parents, and they have yet to reinstate it, and I'll get into that as well. So I'm using this just as an example because this is null and void at this point. Like I said, this was pre-COVID. So if we look over here, you can see this is how much you would have to pay a month. Okay, it went all the way from $0 to $200 a month. And then on the left-hand side is family size. So if you were to find your family size and go over here, and remember, this is gross income. Okay. So before taxes. And if you were somewhere in between the 69,000 and 86,000 a year, then you would expect to pay $20 per month. So let's say that you have that public aid that I talked about where you actually do pay for it. Same applies for you. If you go over here and maybe you have a family size of 5 and you go over here and maybe you make well, you definitely make less than that 55,000 and more than this 47,000, you are in the 0 month per month. You are in the range to pay $0 per month for your family fee. So I hope that makes sense. If you, again, like I said, they have yet to reinstate these, and I will actually put up a blurb from the Illinois, hang on, let me see what it is. The Illinois, where did this come from? I'll have to look and see where that came from. I think it came from our provider connections. But this is what the family fee would look like. And you can see down here, it would say minimum amount due. So you would get these billing statements every month that you would have to pay. So let's go ahead and talk about this. It says in Illinois, the planned implementation of new or adjusted early intervention family fees scheduled for January 1st, 2026 has been paused until further notice. So at the time of this recording, I put that right down here. They have yet to reinstate the family fee schedule for early intervention. However, if you are watching this after May 13th, 2026, then this may have already changed and been implemented. So just keep that in mind. This came from something, like I said, I think it was Provider Connections from Early Intervention, a site that I have access to. And then here are a few examples of paperwork that go into this. If you want to screenshot this and blow it up, you can. I know it's a little bit small, but just really quick, we are acknowledging receipt of notices. This means when we come into your house and do the intake, we've got a folder that has several pieces of information for you. And by you signing this and checking this, this just means that you received it. And then this allows us to bill your insurance if you have public or if you have private insurance. And then these are, well, this is the release right here. And then this is what the service coordinator, you're not going to have to fill any of this out. Actually, the service coordinator does it for you, but she definitely goes by some of these questionnaires. Over here, it talks about if your child passed their newborn hearing screening, if they had another hearing screening, if they see any specialists, who their pediatrician is, if they take any medications, if they have any equipment or anything like that that they use, like standers or walkers or AFOs, if they have those inserts in their shoes. So anything like that would go down there. And then this talks about who lives in the family, how old they are. And then down here, it talks about if there's any concerns with anyone in the family, extended family or immediate family having any medical concerns. So a lot of paperwork that goes into it. This is just a snippet of it, but I wanted to be transparent with you guys and show you all of this information is actually online. I just typed in early intervention, Illinois, like intake paperwork. So I'm sure you could do the same thing for your state and just kind of see, what kind of things they're going to be asking you. But the intake process is very thorough. So they will explain everything when they do the intake with you. And then, so my advice during the intake is to be completely honest. I want you to share your concerns openly. There are no perfect answers, and I want you to trust your observation. Even if you have this feeling, I know as a woman, I'm always like, I feel like if you have these feelings, I want you to voice them because doing so helps us to get the right evaluation scheduled for your little one. And I know the second that the service coordinator leaves, you're going to feel guilty for not voicing it. You will have a second chance at the evaluations that are coming up with the therapist. But honestly, any information you can give us during the intake is going to help us better prepare to get the right people set up for your little one. And an example of that is, so speech might actually be a concern, but you also question sensory issues that you see. I want you to voice that. Like I said, that way we can get a speech therapist in there, and then we can also get an occupational therapist in there. Even if the occupational therapist doesn't qualify your child, at least we're getting them seen because we are very, very proactive in our program. Um, and then again, if you have any questions, I know I'm going over a lot and I feel like I'm going fast today. So if you have any questions, just put those in the chat or the comment section below and I will check those. Um, all right, we'll keep going. So so expectations. So just know that at the intake, no diagnosis happen, no therapy starts. You're not going to know if your child qualifies yet. That actually happens at the evaluations. During the intake, the evaluations will get scheduled. So you'll know when the therapists are coming out. In our area, like I said, evaluations typically happen in the family's home, um, or they will happen online. It just really depends on the location of the family. Uh, Before COVID, like I said, everything was online. Since COVID, they've been a little bit more laxed with allowing us to do online live video visits with families. So really, it's just gathering a lot of information, opening the doors for you to be able to talk about what your concerns are, and then obviously getting that paperwork started. Okay, so any questions, drop them in the chat. If you have a topic or anything like that that you want me to cover, make sure you also do the same. And if you want to connect with me in any capacity, I have free and paid resources in the description below. So make sure you check those out. A lot of people are loving the quiz. It's the Milestone Mom style quiz. We have 4 different archetypes, so you can see which archetype you are. Let's go ahead and get to some questions really quick. Man, we're on day 3, and I feel like I flew through that. So I'm sorry if I went too fast on that. Just so much information to cover, and I cannot wait to get to evaluations tomorrow. Okay, so let's see. Hold on one second. Okay. What if I get emotional during the intake? Well, honestly, that is incredibly common. A lot of parents, if you think about it, have been carrying concerns quietly for weeks or months before they finally make that referral call. So sometimes intake is actually the first time you're saying these worries out loud to another person. And I always want parents to know you do not have to hold it together perfectly. The intake process is not about judging you, it's about understanding your child, your concerns, and your family's experience with what's going on. I actually once had a mom during the evaluation process, which we will talk about more, like I said, tomorrow. Um, but it often happens at the evaluations too. But this one particular mom that I'm thinking of stands out to me because we were in the middle of an IFSP meeting. Remember, that happens after the evaluations as we're discussing, um, we're giving our reports and we're giving our scores, and you could just feel the tension in the room. And the mom was actually sitting a little bit behind me, so I couldn't really see her, but I could feel it. And I turned around, and as we caught eye contact, I very gently asked her if she was okay. And she began sobbing. And she explained to us that validating what she had been feeling for so long is why she was becoming emotional. So, yes, completely normal, and it's okay. And it's actually to be expected. um, let's see here. No, question 2. What kinds of questions did they ask during the intake? So I kind of already went over this a little bit in the slideshow, but usually intake includes questions about pregnancy, birth history, medical history of family members, and also your child, especially if there is a genetic or hereditary predisposition, um, like hearing loss or something like that. Feeding gets covered, communication, movement, any play skills, your daily routines. How is it going? What are you struggling with? What does your child struggle with? Are they struggling with transitions? Um, And usually we just kind of get to the root of like, what are your biggest concerns right now? And I know that question can feel emotional for parents sometimes because, you know, we're meeting you where you're at in your discomfort, in your curiosity, maybe in your pain at that point. And we're actually asking you, like, what do you need from us? Like, what is your biggest concern? What can we do to help? And I want you to remember that you don't need perfect answers during this intake. Actually, the more information you can give, the better. That's because you're simply helping us in those moments to help us paint a picture of your child's development so that the service coordinator can get the correct information to the therapist who will be coming in to do the evaluation. So it's very, very important that it's very, very important that you do discuss your feelings and your thoughts with the coordinator. And this is what she does all the time. So she's absolutely used to it. And, since we've been doing this so long, even service coordinators are able to connect the dots. So maybe, like I said, if your concerns are speech, but maybe you're bringing up some sensory things, like your child touches food and they automatically have a gagging reflex, or maybe they're outside, and they don't like grass on their feet, or it's a struggle to get them in a car seat because they do not like going anywhere. They don't like riding in the car. They throw a fit the whole time that you guys are at, the grocery store or something like that. They can piece it together just by you voicing that and saying, you know what, I think we need to get speech in here, and probably an occupational therapist just to kind of see how things are going. So, question number 3, and I think it looks like this one is it. So, what if my child acts completely different during intake or evaluations? This is a good question because parents actually worry about this all the time. And honestly, us as professionals, we expect children to have different moods, energy levels, and comfort levels when we are there to see them. That is why, parents report, that is why report, parents report is so important. Sorry, I'm stumbling on my words here. That is why parents reporting to us is so important and such a needed part of the process. You are the one that knows what your child does at home, during play, during meals, throughout daily routines and activities. You know what they're struggling with. So even if your child is shy, if they're upset, if they're overly active or quiet during appointments, your input still matters tremendously. I realized, I'm sorry, I forgot to switch. So you've been looking at my screen. I do apologize for that. It's actually been amazing the times I've been in families' homes and parents say things to us like, they don't usually act like this. We've had kiddos that crawl on tables and they're like, they've never done this before. It's because they're showing off, they're acting out. And you know what? Through our professional observations, through your parent interview, because we ask you a lot of questions, and through us just doing our testing, we actually get a pretty accurate picture of your little one. So parents are actually often surprised when we do give our reports and see how well we have displayed their little one via our reports, even if they weren't behaving how they normally would. So I hope that answered your questions okay. Um, okay, I guess that's it for day 3. We are moving on to day 4 tomorrow, which is all about evaluations. So keep the questions coming, even in the comment section, and I will answer any that I can tomorrow. All right, guys, thanks for hanging out with me again today, and I will see you tomorrow. All right, bye-bye.